The first of the Hell in a Cell trilogy is in the books, ladies and gentlemen. What do I think? You're just going to have to wait until the end of this video to find out. First up, Dan McLaughlin, aka the Baseball Crank, at the corner at nationalreview.com late last night. In his opinion, we got the debate we deserved. First, Lester Holt, NBC News, did not do the best of jobs on the one thing a moderator is supposed to do: control the allocation of time and prevent the candidates from talking over each other. But he did the right thing in mostly letting them talk and letting the voters see them for who and what they really are. It's like they could have done anything else. Second, both candidates showed up as, woe be to them, themselves. Trump filibustered and blustered and attacked Hillary from the left as well as the right. Hillary went for the wonkish support and the prepared canned answers, the low-hanging fruit on sexism, and the adult answers on foreign policy that sounded like George W. Bush but ignored the actual facts of the Obama years. As I noted earlier, what Hillary very obviously did not do was to try to explain why Trump is not a Republican. Yet, she also did not really try to hang him around the necks of down-ticket Republicans either. Both sides ignored the down-ticket, party-building types of answers. Not real surprising, is it? Was there a winner tonight or last night? Well, not an obvious one to the informed viewer. But then any informed person would run from these two candidates in horror. Horror, I say. Some of Trump's most effective moments were also his most demagogic, such as on the Trans-Pacific Partnership and Iraq and crime. If this debate moves the needle at all, it may be for the reasons totally unrelated to reason. Jim Garrity, in his Morning Jolt newsletter this morning, has some advice for Trumplicans. Stop looking for scapegoats like Trumplicans were capable of such self-restraint. Donald Trump and his fans can complain about Never Trump and recalcitrant Republicans all they like they wouldn't. But last night, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, in front of tens of millions of people, perhaps 100 million viewers, nothing else mattered but the candidates. The ads, the surrogates, the rallies, the ground game, all of that fades away. And for an hour and a half, it's just Trump, Hillary Clinton, and questions from Lester Holt. There are no other outside factors, no distractions. Winning the race is all on him, Trump. And it's perhaps the single biggest moment of the campaign, his single best opportunity to lay out the case for himself and the case against Mrs. Clinton. Now, if you're a Trump fan and you feel like he did a great job, well, great. You have nothing to worry about. Actually, you have a buttload to worry about, but Trumplicans are delusional anyway. If you're a Trump fan and feel he missed a lot of opportunities, then you're probably not really a Trump fan. In either and any case, that's on him. That's not the fault of Ben Sasse. It's not the fault of Jeb Bush or Mitt Romney or me or anybody who's refusing to support him. Trump, that is. There has been this inane argument that one or two senators, a couple of retired GOP figures, and some writers and bloggers and holding my hand up, and folks on Twitter and Facebook are going to cost Trump the presidency by refusing to jump on the bandwagon. Yeah, you thought I was going to do the other one, huh? Didn't you? Yeah, okay. Just mixing it up a little bit, keeping you on your toes out there in YouTube land. In any case, the notion that Never Trump can, on the one hand, be this dead, tiny, irrelevant little group of bitter enders that doesn't matter to anything, and on the other hand, can deny Trump the presidency, is nonsense. That's scapegoat shopping. We'll see if last night's debate changes the numbers in this race. It's been enough of a topsy-turvy year where it's quite possible Trump enjoys a surge. Or rather, Hillary collapses again. Figuratively and literally. Particularly for the first half hour, he came across as a figure you could almost kind of sort of, if you squinted yourself into blindness, picture in the Oval Office. But there seems to be pretty broad consensus that Mrs. Clinton got a lot of attacks in, mentioned a lot of the unsavory and controversial parts of Trump's record, and made him spend a lot of time on the defensive. He never got around to mentioning some of her weakest spots, like the Clinton Foundation, allegations of favor trading, Benghazi, her support for arming the rebels in Syria. He barely mentioned Libya, even. The word email came up 4 times in 90 minutes. 4 times. He didn't talk about Benghazi, for crying out loud. You still think he did a great job, Trumplicans? Oh, and then there was the part where Hillary Clinton went on a classist tirade about the real estate, the bubble and the financial panic in 2008 and all the millions of people that lost their jobs, and that Trump took advantage of it as a greedy robber baron businessman. And Trump said, well, that's business. In other words, he said, as much as said, yeah, I am a robber baron. And everything the left says about us businessmen is correct. That's pretty much what he said. You still think he did a great job, Trumplicans? This morning, he's blaming his microphone. That's the latest Trump conspiracy theory. That, they turned down my microphone so nobody could hear me. Oh, I think everybody heard. I don't think Trump needs a microphone. Do you? I've always wondered what he's at his rallies. His big-ass Nuremberg-esque rallies. Why does he need a microphone? I mean, his voice, he's such a loudmouth, he doesn't need a microphone, it seems to me. Anyway, he's blaming the microphone. I think they turned it down so that nobody could hear me. Yeah, right. Last night on CNN, Corey Lewandowski, what's his nickname? The vicious niblet, blamed Lester Holt. But the person who has more control over Donald Trump's debate performance than anyone else is, prepare yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, especially you Trumplicans out there, because I know you're just going to be gobsmacked when you hear this. The person who has more control over Donald Trump's debate performance than anyone else is Donald Trump. No one else can go up there and make his argument for him. If his fans are disappointed this morning, they should be disappointed with him. And if they're pissed, they should be pissed at him, Donald J. Trump. Not that they will, of course. Here's some other thoughts. Did The Republican presidential nominee just endorsed stop and frisk on a national scale. Remember we talked about that in a video last week? About how Donald Trump certainly sounds an awful lot like Barack Obama, and that he thinks that the President of the United States should set local law enforcement policy, as well as just arbitrarily seizing guns from gun owners in the process. This just in. Trump's not a conservative, much less a constitutionalist. Yeah, that's what Trump endorsed. Stop and frisk on a national scale. Quote, now, whether or not in a place like Chicago you do stop and frisk, which worked very well, Mayor Giuliani is here, worked very well in New York. Yeah, he was mayor, not president. Jesus. It brought the crime rate way down, but you take the gun away from the criminals, that shouldn't be having it. Take the gun away. Those are the operative words from those couple of sentences. Did Trump contend that Iran was ready to fall, referring to the 2009 Green Revolution, I suppose, and that now it was on the verge of being a major power? Quote, but you look at the Middle East, you start the Iran deal, that's another beauty where you have a country that was ready to fall. I mean, they were doing so badly. They were choking on the sanctions, and now they're going to be actually probably a major power at some point pretty soon, the way they're going. Aren't they a major power now? Isn't one of the core arguments against Obama's record that he has already let Iran become the dominant power in the Middle East? More than 90 minutes of debate and one fleeting mention of Syria? A Trump regime would just rescind our defense assurances to Japan? Here's another Trump quote from last night. Nuclear is the single greatest threat. Just to go down the list, we defend Japan, we defend Germany, we defend South Korea, we defend Saudi Arabia, we defend countries. They do not pay us, but they should be paying us. Oh, so we're supposed to be mercenaries then. Is that what it is? Because we are providing tremendous service and we're losing a fortune. Actually, it's not true. They do reimburse us. We're not doing it for free. They're called alliances. Jesus. That's why we're losing. We're losing. We lose on everything. I say, who makes these? We lose on everything. All I said, that it's very possible that if they don't pay a fair share, because this isn't 40 years ago where we could do what we're doing. We can't defend Japan, a behemoth, selling us cars by the million. Stop the tape. Some wise voices have argued for a long time that it's safe for Japan's self-defense forces to expand and begin taking a role in global peacekeeping and counterterrorism operations. But this is a whole different idea. I mean, we've been importing Japanese cars by the millions since the 70s, and we kept that security alliance in place throughout the Cold War. If you wanted to turn Asia into an even bigger powder keg than it is now, a good opening move would be the American president declaring, we can't defend Japan. Remember what happened when President Truman, actually it was his Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, in summer of 1950, said, and I quote, South Korea is outside the American defense perimeter. Remember what happened literally a few weeks later? North Korea invaded South Korea, and then the Chinese joined in. The Korean War? All because a high American official said something stupid. You want to give Donald Trump that kind of power? I mean, the bottom line is the first debate was a terrible night for Trump. So he'll probably, well, Mrs. Clinton will probably sag in the polls again. Speaking of Hillary, she began oddly with a lame knock on trumped-up trickle-down. And claiming Trump's main focus was to, oh, this is original. This is amazing. What wit! What creativity! She said Trump's main focus was to help the rich. You know what the worst part of that is? She's right! Like when he said, hey, that's business. Yep, I am a robber baron. You know, he could have explained, in a free market economy, guess what? It's fractal chaos by definition. Because you've got jobs being created and other jobs going away. And the idea is to implement policies that encourage job creation in sufficient numbers that it offsets job destruction. Creative destruction, you've heard that term, I trust. He could have simply explained, this is how a free market economy works. You know, if your job disappears, the idea is there will be another job over here that you can get. You can go from this job to the next job. That's the way it's supposed to work. In a free market economy, that's the way it does work, to the degree that the government doesn't get in the way. This is the exact same playbook Mrs. Clinton would have run against Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush or any actual Republican. And again, Trump is not a Republican. But after the first 15 minutes or so, she shifted to steadily working her way through the anti-Trump briefing book. She clearly had memorized a whole briefing encyclopedia on Trump's controversial statements, scandals, lawsuits, and worked in most of them over the course of 90 minutes. Methodical is, I think, the term you're looking for. I think if you look at Trump's face immediately after the debate, he knew he didn't have a good night. One could argue the topic selection played against him. A whole section on birtherism, but then hell, who brought that up in the first place, including just last week? Extended discussion of his unreleased tax returns. He brought that on himself. Whether he stiffed former contractors. The debate included nothing on immigration. Hey, did you hear that, Trumplicans? There was nothing on immigration last night. God almighty, you would think that Trump himself would bring it up. If Lester Holt wasn't going to, he just let it slide. No, not a single word on immigration last night. You still think he had a good night, Trumplicans? The debate included nothing on border security. Nothing on immigration or border security. Oh, you Trumplicans have to be so proud of your guy. Nothing on Benghazi, like I said earlier. Nothing on the Clinton Foundation. The discussion of Hillary's emails was brief. I mean, given the degree to which Donald Trump was interrupting and filibustering and this and that, why didn't he talk about any of these things? Nothing on immigration. He could have, so you would think. I mean, if immigration is his core issue, border security, his core issue, you'd think he could have filibustered on that for the whole 90 minutes. Benghazi! He never brought up Benghazi. Nothing on the Clinton Foundation. Nothing on Emailgate. Crooked Hillary, anyone? This was his chance. He did nothing. Still think he had a great night, Trumplicans? One of Mrs. Clinton's key strengths of the night was keeping her cool as Trump bulldozed over moderator Lester Holt and brought his traditional relentless, jabbing, unstoppable style. But, oh, by the way, not in service to bringing up immigration, border security, Benghazi, the Clinton Foundation, or Emailgate. A lot of Trump's GOP rivals never quite figured out how to deal with this human hurricane who doesn't care at all about time limits, what question he was asked, interrupting the opponent, and so on. Then again, none of Trump's primary rivals had the advantage of a one-on-one matchup. And if you will recall, as soon as it came down to a one-on-one matchup, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, he ducked any more debates, didn't he? Remember that? Can you picture if there had been a one-on-one Trump-Cruz debate anytime from March until early May? Think that might have made a difference in who got the GOP nomination? I think it just might have. Trump started better than he finished. He may be in better shape if the audience size declined over the course of the night. But on issue after issue, it was one missed opportunity after another. And the opportunities missed were absolutely inexcusable. Here's a hint, Trumplicans. You should be pissed. And you should be panicking. You should be panicking because this was your guy's shot. You know that expression, you never get a second chance to make a first impression? This was Trump's chance. This was his opportunity. He had crooked Hillary one-on-one and let her off the hook. Let her off the hook. He got his ass kicked by an ill, ailing old woman. You know, it's a shame Lester Holt couldn't be there last night. A lot of people wondered how he would perform as a moderator. Wait a minute. He was there? Oh. Okay. I suppose he just forgot about the no applause, no cheering rule as the night wore on. I told you people this was going to be like an episode of the Jerry Springer Show. Well, if this doesn't, well, Garrity says, reverse the polls for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's up by 3 percentage points in the popular vote. I hasten to point out. She bounced back last week, or rather, Trump sagged last week. I guess the proper thing to say here is if she doesn't blow out to a huge lead after last night, well, then I don't know what else could make it happen. Back at the corner at nationalreview.com, Jonah Goldberg was of the opinion that it depends on the scorecard. So I can score this a bunch of different ways. If the metric was the first half hour, a standard that kind of sprung out of nowhere in the last day or so, then I think Trump won. He was relatively coherent, relatively. got his big issues and themes across, except for immigration and border patrol, or border control, and Benghazi and Emailgate and the Clinton Foundation. But other than that, and managed to be very aggressive without seeming too much of an asshole. And of course, which is to say, for him, grading on a very generous curve. On the substance, I think most of his answers were wrong on the facts and the principle, but I'm used to that not mattering anymore. The disenfranchisement of conservatism. He was good at getting the message that got him this far across. Of course, it's not going to do him much good now. He also won the body language debate in the beginning, put the TV on mute, and he clearly dominated in the sense that Al Gore menacing George W. Bush from across the stage dominated. Of course, what did that do for Gore? But by around halftime, Trump started to come apart. I don't think that he had any disastrous gaffes, just the usual run-of-the-mill gaffes, like, well, that's business. No truly painful sound bites, just the normal sound bites that will haunt him in the days to come. And, I mean, if you lower the bar below the Earth's mantle, you could kind of sort of describe that as a kind of a victory for Trump. He also scored some good points on Hillary's 30 years of getting little accomplished in the growth of ISIS, but never mentioned Syria. It was clear, though, that once Trump took the bait about his small loan from his father, that Hillary would be able to lead Trump in almost whatever direction she wanted. And this gets into one of Trump's biggest vulnerabilities. See, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, all cosmic narcissists. The difference with Trump is Trump's also a moron. Having a stupendous ego makes one supremely vulnerable to being manipulated by anybody who recognizes that character flaw. I can't even imagine all the different ways in which Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Ali Khamenei, all of our enemies could manipulate Donald Trump just by manipulating his ego. They know what buttons to push. I mean, that's been true to a degree of Barack Obama. With Donald Trump, it'd be like Etch-a-Sketch. It's frightening to contemplate. That was probably the most impressive thing about Mrs. Clinton's performance. Other than that, she was uninspiring, unamusing, unentertaining, but fine. I mean, she was never going to be inspiring, amusing, or entertaining. That's not her. She didn't try to be these things. It just would have been embarrassing if she had. She was herself, which means she emphasized and played to her strengths, such as they are. She controlled much of the tempo. She said some ridiculous things, too. On Iran, the need to become a clean energy superpower, her email, etc. But I don't think she scared away any swing voters, in part because when Hillary is wrong, she doesn't sound unhinged. No matter how unhinged what she says really is. Unlike Donald Trump, he discredits conservatism, and yet she doesn't manage to discredit liberalism. That's basically the difference. And that raises the best way to score this debate. What did swing or persuadable voters think? If you're truly pro-Hillary or pro-Trump, it doesn't matter what you thought last night. Your vote is baked in. But if you're on the fence or thinking about not voting at all, your impression matters. You know, a lot of undecided voters in this election, a lot more than normal, because both candidates are so stupendously unpopular. And in this regard, I think Mrs. Clinton was the winner. Unpersuaded, college-educated white women didn't come away from this debate, at least not in large numbers, feeling reassured by Trump. Mrs. Clinton was narrowcasting at the voters she needs. Trump was broadcasting to the voters he already has. This is a point that's been made many times over the past couple of months. Bottom line is, neither put anything away tonight. The bad, the worse, the awful. What an ugly presidential debate. And they won't get any better. So headlined Caleb Howe at Red State this morning. On Monday night, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump faced off in the first presidential debate. Joint press appearance. Moderated by Lester Holt, NBC News. And it was lousy, terrible, embarrassing, unhelpful, and ugly. Not ugly like mean or nasty. Ugly like poorly done. And oh my God, is this real life? And everyone knows it. Suffice it to say that neither of the candidates won. Rudy Giuliani is already suggesting Trump quit the debates. Isn't that... What does that say, Trumplicans? What does that say about what your guys' own camp, your guys' own surrogates think about what happened last night, about how your guy did? Giuliani is out there openly, publicly suggesting Trump duck the last two debates. Throw in the towel! No mas! No mas! Oh, ostensibly it was because the moderator was mean. Yeah, the intimidating Lester Holt. Anybody with the name Lester is a beta male, almost by definition. I thought Trump was this alpha male. You know, Trump Tower, king of testosterone. I mean, whatever happened to that guy? I thought Trump was high energy. Well, that seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Hillary fans are playing the woman card like it's their last chance. Not a sign of successful candidates overall. Trump was all over the map at this debate, alternating between his very fake, I'm respectful and professional affectation, which he sucks at, and his more typical, haughty, egotistical, impatient, red-faced clown figure persona. You know, his actual personality. He was an interrupting machine, and yet, with all of the interruptions, he never brought up immigration, he never brought up border control, he never brought up Benghazi, he never brought up the Clinton Foundation, and he never brought up Emailgate. And Syria once. And like most big interrupters, Trump was indignant if the favor was returned. Excuse me was said a number of times. You know, kind of like Vicky Guerrero.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I said excuse me!
Oh, there.
I have something to say!
Shoot. Tonight.
Excuse me! Excuse me! Excuse me! Excuse me!
Dolph's got. Dolph has.
I said excuse me!
Show.
Excuse me! I said excuse me!
This match. Who cares? Be quiet. The show. Oh.
That's odd, isn't it? And I thought Mrs. Clinton was supposed to be Vicky Guerrero and Donald Trump was supposed to be Paul Heyman. Who'd have thought that there would be a role reversal? Well, first time for everything. Of all the many times that Donald Trump lost his patience and bickered, the most alarmingly unself-aware was when he insisted stridently that he has the best, no, let him finish, the best temperament to be president! Why can't you people understand? I have a great temperament! Hillary, for her part, had trouble just reacting to things in the way a normal person would react to them. Every time she laughs at something or plays at indifference, it's like watching an android that can simulate but not feel human emotions. And we're not talking lore, we're not talking data, we're talking B4. All right, watch Star Trek X Nemesis, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. In other words, a retarded android. Now, the worst of those many moments was exactly following Trump's temperament moment, when she had what was almost definitely a momentary short circuit, proving definitively that neither of them has the right stuff, although evidently she covered it well. Trump has no command of the facts. He was totally unprepared, and it's common knowledge, we've read about many times about how Donald Trump, he complains about how his campaign staffers give him briefing books and papers and documents, and he just goes off and diddles on Twitter. This man has no work ethic because really he's never worked a day in his life. So he's totally unprepared, can't back up any of his rhetoric with data, numbers, or even examples, whether it's on Obamacare, economics, foreign policy, or the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow. The bird just didn't want to leave that unclear. When Mrs. Clinton was wrong, which was most of the debate, he couldn't correct her and didn't seem all that interested or inclined to try. And his inconsistency and constant policy shifts shone through, such as his muddled remarks about people on watch lists. Yeah, he's all for depriving anybody on a watch list of their Second Amendment rights by violating their Fifth Amendment rights. And Fourth Amendment's, trial by jury. That's all you have to do to have all your rights stripped from you is for the government to just decide they don't like you, and so they call you a terrorist and put you on the no-fly list. Blatantly, flagrantly unconstitutional. Donald Trump's for it, just like Mrs. Clinton. Oh, and the aforementioned stop and frisk. The federalization of local law enforcement, which I thought that was Barack Obama's gimmick. Apparently, Trump's going to pick up that baton and not miss a beat. Trump has a tin ear and lets his need to feel justified and admired, aka his narcissistic personality disorder, his cosmic ego, override his need for smart answers, even if he was capable of offering any. The best example of this is when Trump said, as I've already mentioned, "That's called business," about profiting from the housing crisis. Oh my gosh. I mean, Hillary has no solutions. Right at the beginning, in her opening statement, she claimed that pretty much every possible aspect of American life is in disarray and disorder, and that someone needs to fix it. And how does that really differ all that much from Trump? Strong man, strong woman, both un-American. Then she advocates proposals and positions that continue the exact same ideas that Barack Obama has been operating on for the 8 years of that very disarray and disorder. We are so bleeped. How is more Obama going to fix what she herself claims is desperately broken if it hasn't already? Or has not indeed created the very problems she purports to fix and made them worse? Trump did do a great job of nailing Hillary on that point, and he should have stuck with it, but of course, he's a moron and a liberal, which means his heart is not in trying to sound conservative, even if he knew how. Instead, Hillary brought up many of Trump's scandals, prior positions, past statements, and media storms to great effect, throwing him off balance and making him look desperate and angry. Understand, this is Hillary Clinton who was bringing up Trump's scandals, prior positions, past statements, media storms. This woman is the queen of all of that. Trump could have simply countered. What better reminder? What better mental tripwire for bringing up Benghazi, for bringing up the Clinton Foundation, for bringing up, oh hell, cattle futures, Whitewater. I mean, good Lord. What better invitation, what better reminder could he have possibly had? Instead, what did he do? Threw him out. He got thrown off balance, looked desperate and angry. You still think your guy had a good night, Trumplicans? Hillary would have looked a lot worse at this debate had any of her big scandals been brought up by Lester Holt, but the media has spent too much time in sanctimony telling the American people, you're bored with this email topic, whether we actually are bored or not. So that, aside from a brief mention by Trump, and Benghazi didn't come up. Trump didn't. How smart do you have to be to understand that Lester Holt is not going to highlight or bring up Hillary Clinton's numerous vulnerabilities on the scandal front? And so you got to do it yourself? Mr. Filibuster, Mr. Interruption, Mr. Bully Boy? Who else? Who better to bring up all these things? He didn't do it. Not to get conspiracists, Trumplicans, but doesn't that make you wonder just a little bit? That Donald Trump did not bring up virtually any of Hillary Clinton's biggest vulnerabilities. Why didn't he bring up her health? Why didn't he turn to Hillary last night and ask her straight to her face, what is your health status right now, Mrs. Clinton? Are you dying? Who else to bring it up but Donald Trump, right? He didn't do it. Why, Trumplicans? Why didn't he go for the jugular? You know you wanted him to, yet he didn't do it. Why? Almost as if he's trying to take a dive, trying to throw the election, isn't it? Far from Hillary. Well, it's rigged in Hillary's favor. Maybe he's the one rigging it in her favor. Hey, if you want to talk conspiracy theories. What did come up was the birther issue forever. The birther issue, which he brought up himself just last week. Why did he do that? When that would make it more likely that Lester Holt would seize on that and make that a big issue in the debate. Is your guy that big of a moron, Trump supporters, or is he trying to sabotage himself? Trying to help Hillary? That was a totally useless waste of airtime, of course, and didn't make either one of them sound good. It didn't make the media look good either. It was very much an aside in a debate that started out promising to talk about prosperity and security and the path to success on those fronts, or in other words, what most Americans were presumably interested in hearing about. Why they thought that's what they were going to get is anybody's guess. As both Trump and Hillary prefer it, there was pretty much no discussion. Are you paying attention, evangelical Trump supporters? No discussion of social issues. No discussion of the culture war. No discussion of Christophobic persecution. None of that. Evangelical Trump supporters, your guy didn't bring it up. All the issues you care about, he didn't bring up. I mean, it goes without saying that Lester Holt wasn't going to bring them up, but why didn't your candidate bring them up? I mean, Jerry Falwell Jr., James Dobson, all these supposed Christian clergy or Christian media figures, evangelical, followers of Jesus Christ, so they claim, and who have gone behind Donald Trump, and then their guy doesn't bring up any of their issues. Trump doesn't bring up abortion. Trump doesn't bring up religious persecution. Trump doesn't bring up gay rights, gay marriage, gender dysphoria. None of these issues. Perverts in the bathroom, like in North Carolina. Trump doesn't bring up any of these things. Why do you think that is, evangelical Trump supporters? Aren't you bothered because your candidate didn't even touch on your issues, didn't even hint at your issues, just totally ignored them? Why do you trust this guy? Again, the media has decided for us that we think those things don't matter. Both Trump and Hillary would have blown it on those issues and mostly agreed with one another. Planned Parenthood does great work. Transgenderized the bathrooms in Trump Tower, remember that? So they're probably equally thrilled not to have to discuss them, and Trump chose not to interrupt to bring up that topic, or any of them. It was know nothing versus do nothing good, leaning generally left of center, which we knew the right is not represented in this election, period. And that's really the problem with these joint press appearances. From the voters' perspective, we didn't get to learn anything. There was no real policy discussed, per usual, and a lot of it was boring minutia. It was just the two of them clashing about who was more of a bad person. And in that, they were both right. The other person's bad. Now, in the abstract, people already know both candidates suck. But on Monday night, millions saw it live. There's simply no way anyone came away from that train wreck thinking, wow, I really like Trump. He's personable and sharp. Or, man, that Hillary really won me over with her affable nature and clear moral stands. It seems what they did was argue about the things the media most like to talk about on news, talk, and cable opinion shows, and not what most Americans would talk about at the dinner table or water cooler. And I'm presuming that means most Trumplicans. In that sense, the only real winners are those who make a living off of sound bites, which is the only kind of rhetoric in which these two candidates traffic. In other words, it matched this entire election pretty much perfectly. And it will only get worse from here. They aren't suddenly going to become better, more likable candidates. Come on, sweet meteor of death. We need you now. Jay Caruso at Red State this morning didn't mince words. For Donald Trump, the debate was a total disaster. Just like anybody who knows Donald Trump would have anticipated and did predict. It has been said that Jackie Gleason hated to rehearse, and The Honeymooners was filmed with the cast receiving the script only hours before. It was a testament to Gleason's skill, and that of his co-stars, that the show was hilarious and a roaring success. Donald Trump proved in the debate last night that he doesn't have enough talent to go into a debate unprepared. Remember Trump's supposed talent for winging it? That's how he prefers to go. He prefers to wing it. And interestingly enough, in the primaries, the media let him do that. Didn't let him do it last night, did they? Hillary Clinton came across exactly as we expected. Boring, pedantic, and long-winded. Her attempts at being funny reminded me of the person who tells a joke, laughs, and says, "Get it?" to the crickets. Still, Hillary was prepared and in command of the facts and pretty much ran circles around Trump. Trump continued to be an embarrassment as the standard bearer for the Republican Party. He did well in the first 20 minutes, relatively speaking, hitting Hillary on trade and playing to the white working class voters that solidified his base of support as if he was afraid of losing them. But from that point on, things got progressively worse. And yes, pun intended. During the GOP primary, Trump had the freedom to walk out on stage, shout whatever dribble he wanted, and walk off declaring himself the winner because he never had to take time to answer questions about policy, diplomacy, or national security with any depth. Again, why do you think that when it finally came down to a one-on-one, mano-a-mano with Ted Cruz, Trump ducked any more debates? Now you know. Last night, he didn't have that option. He had to go one-on-one on policy, diplomacy, national security, in depth, and he was not up to the challenge. No way. Trump has zero command of the facts. Trump is a moron by his own choice. His answers on specific policies sounded as though he was searching for the truth inside that head of his, the giant Cheeto, in other words. And there were times he rambled on incoherently to the point he reminded me of the homeless people you see at the train station feeding the pigeons and talking to themselves. The worst part is, Trump likely convinced himself after seeing the online drudge poll that he won. That's what he tweeted out last night, predictably. And won convincingly! He'll read criticism such as, or hear criticism such as this as nothing more than sour grapes from losers. Makes one to know one. Who just don't get his brilliance. Emperor has no clothes, folks. Now, if he's lucky, Kellyanne Conway will get a hold of him and say, "That was awful. It's time to prepare for the next debate." Like he would. Oh, man. I would love to see Trump go out there and try. That would be even more embarrassing than Trump being Trump. I really think so. I mean, if Trump could learn to read from a teleprompter, theoretically he could prepare for debates. But he doesn't think he needs to. His ego gets in the way. Trump may find himself in more familiar company in the next debate when it is a town hall format. He may be more at ease with such a format, but he still needs to prepare, which he won't. Last night was terrible by any measure, even in a political season as weird as this one. That's who Susan Wright at Red State thinks won last night's first joint press appearance. I debated with myself for the past week over whether I would watch the first joint press appearance between Tweedledum and Tweedlecorrupt last night. I knew it would be the equivalent of watching our society burn. I did watch, however. I watched, and it was all I envisioned and more. Hillary Clinton is literally the most unlikable candidate to ever run for office. Her every word was plastic, contrived, and desperately lacked any genuine human emotion. Her facial expressions, her eye movements, even the way she held her mouth had me tensing up. As I waited for the skin to split and some grotesque alien life form to emerge and announce, "People of Earth." On substance, she had a grasp of the issues being presented. The problem was I disagreed with pretty much everything she was saying. She's an arrogant, corrupt socialist, and our nation cannot afford her. Then there was Trump. Oh my God. If there was ever any doubt that the man is completely unfit to lead, it should have been removed after last night. I'll give him credit for making some good points about the economy during the first few minutes of the debate, but he couldn't hang on for long because he didn't mean them. As the heat was turned up, he dissolved into a pool of his own inadequacy. The twitching, the facial expressions, his constant interruptions, while not bringing up immigration, border control, the Clinton Foundation, email gate, Mrs. Clinton's health. Abortion, gender dysphoria, gay marriage, gay rights. These were things that went over well during the primaries for some bizarre reason, but he shouldn't have expected it to be the same during the first general debate, and neither should any of his brain-dead zombie supporters. He was utterly unprepared and outclassed. No, you can't wing it at this level. The rules strike back. By the one person that literally any other candidate would have been able to pick apart with ease from beginning to end. Oh my God, can you picture what Ted Cruz would have done to that woman last night? With all that, the spin from his surrogates has been deliciously pathetic. Senator Jeff Sessions, in an after-debate interview, said, quote, "If you think you'd be so good at it, you try it," the senator told the Washington Post's Dave Weigel. Yeah, but Trump was supposed to be a master. He won, right? Senator Sessions doesn't seem to think so. By the way, I would and I'd win. That's the problem, Senator Sessions. Sessions explained in comments to another reporter that Trump's performance was a bit rocky because he's not a smooth, slick politician. That's why you nominate smooth, slick politicians who know what they're doing! In the end, when asked if Trump at least looked presidential, Sessions replied by saying, I think so. I hope so. Oh, bless his heart. Governor Christie, what you know who I'm talking about, offered his own take on MSNBC. Quote, "Listen, I think you can always improve," Christie said, referring to Obama's disastrous first debate performance during the 2012 presidential election. Yeah, Trump did not do well. You don't say things like that if your guy wiped up the floor with Mrs. Clinton. So, no, he didn't. Obama was getting knocked all over the place by his own party for his performance in the first debate. In the second debate, you saw a difference, Christie said. That's why they don't have one of these. They have three of them. Well, yeah, but Obama's first debate performance 4 years ago wasn't anywhere near the debacle this was, Governor. You want two more of that? Why do you think Giuliani is out there saying, no mas, no mas? With anybody else, Christie would have a point, not with Trump. Trump can't get better. Trump can only get worse. And I like it. Well, here it is again. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani really took home the prize as far as bang up post-debate delusions. Quote, "He restrained himself from saying what I know he would have liked to have said." No, he didn't. Trump never restrains himself from saying anything. "Except for the fact that Chelsea Clinton was in the audience," Giuliani said. Why would he care what Chelsea Clinton would say? He called Chelsea Clinton a fat pig. He doesn't care about Chelsea Clinton. You think Chelsea Clinton held your guy back from saying anything that he wanted to say to Hillary Clinton last night? And that is that she enabled and supported a president who was a disgrace to the White House. Well, yeah, she did, but he's not running. She is. He was one of two presidents impeached. Yeah, that was 20 years ago. Nobody cares about that now. He was impeached because he took advantage of an intern that she attacked for 6 months, and she claims to be a feminist. That was 20 years ago. If you got to relitigate and run against her husband, who's been out of office for 16 years and ain't going back in, really? That's all they got? Again, Trump had the opportunity himself. He was interrupting the whole night. He was being rude the whole night. He was being a dick the whole night. Why didn't he interrupt and bring up Benghazi? Why didn't he interrupt and bring up Emailgate? Why did not he interrupt and bring up Syria? Why did not he interrupt and bring up the Clinton Foundation? Why didn't he do any of these things? Trump supporters? Or immigration, or border control, or abortion, or gender dysphoria, or gay marriage, or evangelical Trump supporters. He didn't bring up any of your issues. He didn't bring up the immigration hawks. He didn't bring up your issues. He didn't talk about the wall. Well, for starters, the reasons for Bill Clinton's impeachment had less to do with Monica Lewinsky and more to do with lying under oath to a federal grand jury and obstruction of justice. Also, that Trump restrained himself from going full Jerry Springer and babbling about the affairs of Hillary's husband in the middle of a debate does not earn him a cookie, and he didn't restrain himself. If he had wanted to talk about that, he would have. He chose not to because he didn't want to talk about it because he's as big a horn dog as Sick Willie was. And allegedly still is. And even then, he got dangerously close to it, and that in itself is bad enough. I mean, Republicans need to stop kidding themselves. This election was decided the moment Trump became the nominee. Period. It was beginning to look like he might have a shot here, but I suspect after last night, he's done. And the worst part, even if he wins, especially if he wins, we lose. Conservatives lose. Constitutional originalism loses for good. Sweet meteor of death, oh, how we long for you. Or even better, even so, come, Lord Jesus. We're begging you. Oh, and what was my opinion of the first joint press appearance last night? I was watching Monday Night Football with my dad. I told you I was going to do that. Don't you pay attention?